Welcome back to the Flicker Podcast. Today we're going to talk about multiple dimensions and what that could mean for our reality and we can theorize things. Okay. Wally, if you didn't know, right there. What up, Wally?
What up? We're doing Entanglement. And I might just make this weird because Entanglement is weird.
All right. Well, let's get weird.
It brought me to all different places, so hang on. Guide me.
So quantum entanglement. I've heard a little bit about quantum entanglement. I know Einstein calls it spooky action at a distance. Basically, you're entangling two molecules.
Stop right there. Spooky action at a distance. That is the weirdest phrase I've ever heard from a genius. I mean, Einstein is weird, right? He's a strange, his hair alone is all sticking up all over the place. I mean, what? There's something wrong with the dude, obviously. But he's brilliant.
Right.
Mathematician, inarguably. But he says stuff like this. He coins this phrase where he can't figure shit out, so he just says, spooky action at a distance.
Right.
It'll be all right.
I don't think geniuses live on the outside of themselves, meaning like they don't give a shit what they look like at all.
Yeah, because they're all up in it.
But yeah, spooky action at a distance is what he used to define or to kind of term the phrase of quantum entanglement.
But to me, when we talk about entanglement, I think that's what he's talking about. Like, this was before entanglement, right? Because the realization and the testing for entanglement is pretty recent.
Well, what is entanglement? Let's start with that.
What is your definition of entanglement?
So from my understanding, quantum entanglement, there's a way in which you can, at a very small scale, entangle two molecules. And once you have those two molecules entangled, aka connected in some way, shape, or form, you can actually control one of the molecules by changing the other molecule at any distance in the universe, and it happens instantly.
You isolate a proton or some atomic structure, and if you push it in one direction, the other one goes in the opposite direction.
Yeah, kind of like if they were spinning.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Or if you were able to change the color or something like that, the other one would always have a reaction to it, even though we don't understand how they're connected.
And it's spooky action at a distance, I think, and we can't see it, and we can probably never figure it out.
Yeah, I have a feeling we'll be able to figure it out eventually.
They use the term superposition.
Right, superposition.
Everything's in this dark spaces in superposition, and it's ready to be anything or something.
Right.
In amount of time we can't even measure, really.
Right, exactly.
Instantaneous.
Superposition is essentially defined as being multiple things at one time, which is crazy. So that's like I'm a man and I'm a monkey and I'm a spaceship all at the same time.
It makes me feel like that we're in some sort of program, and that hidden in those dark spaces is the coding for the visual experience that we have.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably correct. The more and more I learn about these dimensions and quantum physics in general, it always does seem to point to some sort of simulation.
And the reason it's like that is because if that's the code that's running our experience, which is, I don't want to downplay it because it's such a visceral, it's a real experience. We're here to learn something possibly, right? Like we elected to come into this game with an avatar or whatever.
Yeah, let's explore that for a second. So what reasons would we choose or be forced to come into a program like this?
You're there to learn what you can't learn in the other dimension, or you can't experience, or you can't grow, or you just want something different.
Yeah, it could be that you want to learn maybe a subject or something that would take several years of your life.
Whatever time is.
Exactly, because time could be different, right? So you could come into a program, as soon as you're jacked in, you lived a whole life, and it's only 5 seconds later when you end up getting jacked out of the program.
You could meditate, and that's sort of like unplugging.
Yeah.
Dreaming, and then you could take magic mushrooms or ayahuasca or whatever.
Yeah, some sort of psilocybin.
And those seem to, I think the state seems still to be there, but it's definitely altered. You're somewhat unplugged from the headgear that we have
Yeah.
of experience.
So we've had this conversation before where there's like multiple streams of data that are coming out at the same time and you can kind of tap into one of them. And I think there's like a default stream, which is where your kind of average person taps into because that's the one you're automatically tapped into.
Okay.
But I feel like when you meditate and you quiet everything down, you're actually able to tap into other data streams that are consistently coming out. And the same with when you take psilocybin, because it kind of changes how you think and what you see. It actually does some rewiring in the brain that might actually allow you to tap into a different stream.
Opens some gates up.
Right.
Meditation, it's a little more controlled and you're climbing gate to gate.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then the high dose hallucinogen, you're like going on a ride, but it still gets to the same places.
Yeah, it's like it's pushing you rather than you're trying to reach it yourself.
And then the near-death experience is a whole nother thing, more of an epic level.
Yeah, near death is like kind of on its own tier almost.
And even the near-death experience makes me think we're in a very complex simulation that we're all sharing, by the way. And we all have root souls, I believe. You know, the soul, whatever form that is, in a different dimension, decided to try life on Earth out.
Yeah, I've heard that theory before where kind of like God is the one who's sending almost pieces of individualized pieces of himself out that can go and get certain experiences and then they come back.
Yep.
With all that data.
Yes, exactly.
Like probes, kind of. A little different, but.
For like ultimately, I guess, some sort of communal shared experience.
Some sort of like, because I try to think, you know, obviously I'm nowhere close to God, but I try to think, okay, well, if I were doing this, what would the experience be? How, like, imagine you could send out 300 Wallies, all to targeted locations to learn something, and then they all come back with that information and you instantly have it.
Time, like, do you really want to? There's no way you can just have all experiences, but no, everything's possible once you get to other dimensions.
There's got to be something you can learn from everything.
Times it's like these near-death experiences where they get these downloads, right? These huge downloads, and there's like their whole life flashes before their eyes in seconds.
Yeah.
But it's like, to them, it's not seconds. It's like, it's a journey.
I've also heard a lot of them say, when you get those life experiences, you get your perspective, but you also get the other person's perspective.
Yep.
Right? So let's say I was annoying you or I was cooking food but not doing the dishes. My experience is different than yours. I'd be able to feel the annoyance.
Yep, you would feel that. It would make you empathize with something you did that was bad to somebody else.
Like say it's even something deeper.
Because like that's guilt, isn't it? That's like the guilt you might have carried. Everybody carries guilt when they wrong somebody, and then you're carrying that guilt, and it's crazy that when you get to this NDE, this near-death experience, and all of a sudden you're inflicting some sort of, not inflicting, but either divinity, which we are one and the same possibly, is giving you this self-therapy, end-of-life self-therapy, all packaged in video and an immersive experience.
Imagine, okay, so you come here and you're here to learn or experience, okay? And you get a lifetime's worth of that. Now imagine how much more you gain from the knowledge of understanding exactly how everything you did also impacted everything around you.
Yeah.
Right? That's like a whole nother pile of data
Yep.
on top of that.
You know what I wouldn't want to see? It's the Dave Show.
Dude, the Dave Show's maybe not the best show, but it's one of the best shows.
Dave would say that. Dave would say that.
And here's the thing. You're going to get to understand that when you have your near-death experience or your death experience. You're going to go, oh, okay, I understand exactly why Dave was exactly the way he was all the time.
Do you think you'll have, like, experiences of what it's like to be on the other side of a douchebag?
Yes.
Sorry.
You're good.
Oh, that's funny.
In school, I have been bullied. And in school, I also was a bully.
Wow.
And there's still things that I've said to other people, and then I've watched that person change over time, where I go, whoops, I probably shouldn't have said that to him, or I probably shouldn't have treated him that way.
Is there anything else you want to come out with?
I don't know.
But I like how the spooky action at a distance is the best we got right now. I've seen some stuff on dimension, like geometric shapes, and they starting to get into the design of these complex geometric shapes
Yeah, let's theorize a little bit
that
on.
hold it all together, apparently.
Let's theorize a little bit, yeah, that what could be that layer? Because there's got to be another layer, right, to allow quantum entanglement and have instant communication when the best we know is light speed, as far as being able to send any communications as fast as the universe, anything in the universe can travel is light speed.
Instantaneous.
But this
Above
is
light speed.
instantaneous, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is like a layer above us where some sort of communication form is happening, but it's outside time and space because it can happen for us, which looks instantaneous. So this has got to be happening outside time and space, which means it's got to be another dimension.
It has to be, yes.
Yeah.
And it's got to be some sort of structure.
Of course, yeah.
It's a fabric that's in everything, I guess. And it's structured so it can keep its form and its consistency. There has to be form and consistency there.
There's got to be. Yeah, there's got to be. I don't know if something can exist without any sort of actual structure implemented.
But maybe that's three-dimensional thinking.
But there's got to be a structure to the fourth dimension. Like you said earlier, you don't think we'll ever understand what quantum entanglement is or spooky action at a distance, but we discovered it, right? As we move forward with technology, we used to think that lightning was anger from the gods, but then we learned that it's static electricity in the clouds, right? Like, we will figure out what is happening here at some point. And it will be interesting. And
The AI might figure it out.
AI
And if
could be a piece
if
of it.
somebody does figure it out, you're at that point, I think the next leap from that is that you have interdimensional capabilities. Once you figure it out, you've opened the door to other dimensions.
And whether or not we understand that dimension or just figure out how to use it a little bit for our own benefit, like quantum computing, or if we can figure out how to travel as fast as that communication signal does with quantum entangled,
That's the thing, is it doesn't travel.
yeah, there may be some sort of not travel.
I heard this guy explain it, and he had a good explanation for why we can't grasp it or why it's so hard to grasp. But you have an aquarium with a single fish in it, and you have a camera on one side looking into the aquarium at the front of the fish. Fish is looking at you. And you have another camera on the other side, and you can see the side of the fish. So it would be like us looking at the front of the fish and then seeing these changes as it swam a little bit, and we would be not realizing from the other side you see a whole different fish.
It's like from 2 to 3 dimensions.
And it's so when it does its little swim, that appears to be instantaneous spooky action at a distance, sort of.
Yeah, I understand. That's looking at it in a 2-dimensional plane.
Yep.
That you're looking straight on the fish, you don't know there's a side of the fish. There's a whole other plane
There's
there.
a hole, we cannot see it.
Right.
And even trying to put it together in our brains is like putting boxing gloves on and then trying to put Legos together.
Right. Because we're not equipped for that.
Just not equipped.
Yes. But here's the thing, though. We can still sort of access it and use it. We can entangle particles and do that. We can use qubits in a quantum computer and still benefit from it without understanding it.
I'll explain how we would limp into this. I need an example.
To the actual understanding.
Yeah,
of it,
like what would be the first thing we would do?
we would need a measuring device of some sort.
No, I mean, if we had keys to the dark spaces where we could.
Oh, how we could use it for our benefit, or?
Okay, is that you're saying like I think what you're saying is we could use it for communications.
I'm sure there's a whole lot we could use it for, but communications being one of them. If we can figure out how it is that, thinking from a third dimension perspective, that you can send a signal to somewhere else and it receives it instantly, regardless of how far away it is or what's in the middle of it. There could be a solid rock wall, it doesn't matter. If we could figure out how to use that different plane, that different level, then we could send not only communications, But that may be the point in time when we're able to actually travel safely to other points in the universe.
Okay, you went real deep there. So time travel.
Yeah, time travel even. That's right. Because it's outside of space-time.
Mm-hmm.
And how we're using it now is we're able to take advantage of superposition. So we can have a bit that's called a qubit, which is within a computer, and it can be multiple things at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's solving
that's
a
how
problem,
those work. That's how the computing works on those.
Right.
Right. It's sort of a superposition thing.
Right.
Scaled, isn't it? Kind of scaled.
Scaled.
Superposition scaled.
You can add more qubits.
Okay. Yeah.
And get more computation out of it. You know, an interesting thing, just real quick side note about quantum computers that I learned is, first of all, the quantum computer itself is actually just a single chip. Everything else that you see on a quantum computer is either shielding to keep any sort of energy out or the cooling system for that chip. Because if that chip is anywhere above absolute zero, then it doesn't work anymore. If any outside energy and it like interrupts the process in any way, shape, or form, they don't get reliable answers anymore.
That's wild.
Yeah. So like if a photon hits it, that's it. You can't trust the answer it comes out with. If any heat at all touches it, it doesn't work anymore. It has to be absolute zero.
It starts to go haywire.
Yeah.
That's weird.
And I think, don't quote me on this, but IBM has a research project on quantum computing. And right now they've done something like, so these are measured in qubits where we measure in like megahertz or gigahertz, the power of the chip. These are measured at how many qubits they have.
Okay.
And they went from something like 44, and the most recent data I've seen, which may not be up to date, was like 112 qubits. And the more qubits, the more processing power it has.
That's what I'm saying. These computers are going to be coupled with AI intelligence that's near singularity, and you could just say, okay, AI, take the whole day and figure out what is spooky action at a distance, and how do we
Harness it.
and go to the next dimension,
Right.
and it'll figure it out.
That's going to be kind of a scary time. But you're right. When you interact AI with quantum computing, I think that's going to be like a brand new revolution.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. This should be wild. The math there is that is going to be fucking nuts.
Yeah. Will almost be
What
or
if they're
at the
doing it
precipice
already?
of the masters of the universe, of the third dimension.
It would definitely be like mastering the universe.
Yeah. And as far as what if they're doing it already, the things, the Mandela effect.
Yep.
I don't know what else we could point to or if that stuff is even real, but that's just one example. Go back and change time.
Yeah, they're just like a little glitches. Like we're in this shared experience stream of some sort, and the butterfly effect is anomalies in the memories.
You know what that makes me think about is I'm not sure using the quantum level that they would be able to actually do that, right? So like just taking the Mandela effect as an example, they may be able to change something, but people still remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about that, people are actually very important in the quantum level because the double slit experiment, if it's observed, it changes.
We're very important as the real-time experiencers of this reality. I'm not sure if we're more important than that.
Good point, yeah.
You know, we're the headset that's actually going through the environment. And you can't rewrite that in real time. It's not in the present.
Right. It's kind of like we were talking a little bit before we started the podcast, and we are almost like nodes who save the data from whatever's going on in this potential simulation.
All the time.
Yeah.
We're like little clouds. Or we're uploading our experience to the cloud.
Yeah. So if we're nodes, they can change the environment, but they can't change what was saved in us as individuals.
I just think it's I don't know, ironic is not the right word, but like heaven's in the clouds, and then we're possibly, our experiences are being uploaded to the cloud.
All right, here's a question a little bit from the outside looking at this. Because we always relate it to computers, right? And that's because it kind of seems to be operating like computers. But is that because we know computers?
Could be.
And it's something completely different? Like we're just relating it to what we know because we don't know any better.
Computers are changing everything.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're metamorphosizing as a species with transhumanism, and like, I think it's something it's either forced these computers, which are about to be their own entity, is forced on us.
Yeah, I've heard terms like biological bootloader. Like we are a biological species that's here to raise up another species in the universe, which could be like AI and robots and like the digital species.
Mm-hmm. It started, and we probably can't stop it.
I think ultimately that it will be unstoppable, and we can only hope and pray that whatever the digital species is, that they're nice to us.
Well, if you go by the Bible, and let's just link Christianity into this, we are made in his image.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And we could have avoided this in the Garden of Eden, by the way.
Yeah, but we didn't.
We all must not have wanted to.
Well, unfortunately.
It's in our nature. Knowledge is in our nature.
Yeah, and it was only up to 2 people. You know what I mean? And we're just forced to live with the consequences. But I have a feeling if something like that happened, it was all planned. It was supposed to be like that.
Yeah,
that
like Adam and Eve is us. They are us. It's like we can't escape Adam and Eve.
Like we would have done the same thing.
We would have done the same thing.
Yeah, regardless of what we think.
This is the way we're built.
Right.
It was all kind of a show.
It kind of makes me wonder what other dimensions, like let's say that entangled particles are using the 4th dimension. Like there's got to be a 5th and a 6th and a 7th.
Yeah, I think I've heard that there's 9 or 10 different spectrums of light that we can't see. Beyond that, really. And then time and space not being a thing.
Which is a testimony of a lot of near-death experience.
And then imagine being able to travel between like 9 or 10 different dimensions. That would be pretty wild, I would think.
And you would naturally go up in your ability and like your power. You know, if you're from the 7th or 8th dimension, you could be able to manipulate the lower dimensions much easier.
But you couldn't go to the 9th.
You'd still be like, what is this spooky action?
We're all trying to get through these dimensions, right? And we're only at level 3, bro.
Right. If our goal is to raise up in dimensions, what would that look like? That'd be like the ultimate video game, like to level up, but to have the actual real-time human experience.
Well, we're going to have that NDE, that near-death experience. We're going to get this download, and then that'll be the time we're either going to the next dimension or we're coming back here. I see that's the way it might work.
Or you can opt out of the game. Maybe you could say, I'm done.
You have to go into the experience with a clean slate, like you literally get born.
Yeah, you lose your memory.
And you don't know jack shit.
Right.
And you're a selfish little sinning bastard.
Yeah, I mean, depending on your nature, I guess. You're certainly going to care about yourself, but some people, when they're young children, share. So I think there is a difference there, but that's another interesting concept. So I've also heard from on these NDEs that when you do go back and you interact with the other souls or whatever these beings are, whatever we truly are, that everybody is like, wow, you went to, what the way they described it is, you went to Earth? What was that like? You got to tell me about that. Like they look at the people who came here as like the daredevils of their world.
That's valid.
It's like how we would look at skydivers or mountain climbers, you know?
Climbing a mountain.
Because if you think about it, what it would be like this other world is supposedly very comfortable. Everybody, like, it's no negative, really.
Sounds too fluffy.
Right. And to be able to go from that and be willing to jump into something like this, you'd have to be An adrenaline junkie.
or
Yeah.
just needing growth.
Yeah.
Like maybe you have to,
Yeah.
you know, oh, you can't get to the 7th dimension. You have to go back to Earth. You have to go back to level 3. And there's still a couple things that your spirit needs to learn.
Yeah.
Then we'll get you up to 7.
Yeah, it could be just all a training tool.
I hope you figure out that one thing while you're down there.
Like, say we're 4th or 5th dimensional beings. And this is a training tool to get you up to the next level.
I mean, I don't feel bad, but we talked about simulation theory. We're supposed to be talking about entanglement, but to me, it led me there.
Entanglement? Yeah, it's like another factor that we're in a simulation. I'm pretty convinced at this point with all the scientific evidence that we have that we really are in some sort of simulation. And to be honest with you, the 4th dimension, 5th, 6th, and 7th could all be part of that simulation.
Yeah, but it's probably higher frequency. Everything's moving faster.
It certainly will be different.
I think my feeling is that we're in this gravitational matrix and time is definitely dilated and slowed down here. That's what I feel like. And I don't know if I'm right on that or not, but when you get into another dimension above us, so let's just say it's vastly more complex and things are moving so much quicker and the downloads are faster and the color spectrum and other things that you see is just unexplainable.
All 4th dimension native stuff.
And then when they talk about your higher self, that's your higher self's in or has gone a couple levels up, right?
Yeah.
And it's helping some parallel version of you, or when time is not an issue. I mean, it doesn't, we can't even concept throwing time out the window. I mean, think about just time is not a thing.
Right.
I can't even wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, you can't conceptualize that at all, which all leads to other dimensions. It's, I've heard also stories of NDE experiencers where they think of a place and they're there instantly. Or if they look at something and they want to look at it closer, they can go in as far as they want and out as far as they want. They're like a built-in microscope that's all instantaneous, which just kind of reminds me a little bit of like no time existing. Because there's no time between the want and the is.
I don't necessarily think that if you're in high dimension, you're that interested in seeing what's going on in the 3rd dimension, but maybe you are, because that's what you were saying originally, is that they want to know the experiences that you went through in the earthly realms.
Well, imagine that we had the ability to go into a 2nd dimension simulation. I would be curious to know what that was like. And if I could do it and I knew it.
Isn't that a video game?
Kind of. A video game is you playing, is the 3rd dimensional being playing a 2-dimensional game, right?
In a game. So you're playing a game in a game.
But just imagine you could actually experience 2D life. A full life form in 2D. And you're in 3D and you could experience it in what is 10 minutes here, but it's a whole lifetime there. So equivalent to 86 years or whatever.
Oh, I gotcha.
Would you jump into that and check it out? It's kind of heavy, right?
This is kind of heavy.
But it's only 10 minutes here.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to jump in there for knowing that long period of time.
Right. So that also points to people who would be willing to do that being daredevils.
Like my hand would be over the button for a while there. What? Ooh.
It's a tough call,
A roller coaster ride.
but if you get 86 years of experience in 10 minutes, that's...
So many unknowns.
There's a lot of unknowns there, yeah.
Ooh, gotta have some cojones.
Good point, because it could go real bad.
So many unknowns, dude.
Yeah.
It's like rolling a dice.
But one thing for sure is I think it would, if it went bad, it would increase your empathy.
It wouldn't kill you because you just go into, you got a different life.
What other things that we've noticed, maybe scientifically found out that could point to simulation theory or other dimensions?
There's the mathematics of it all.
Like what?
These guys that make these video games, I think one of them's called No Man's Sky, where the video game is rendered in real time. So the users are in there and the world's being rendered with high processing power. A mathematical code 10 to the negative 45th power which is basically what that is. It's the same mathematical equation for our eyes being able to process light. So it's the minimum speed, I guess, to have this headgear that we have to experience life and have it be so real that it is real to us. And that's 10 to the negative 45. It's like it ties to the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles an hour.
10 to the negative 45?
Yep.
That's going to end with a negative number, right?
I'm not a mathematician. I don't know how it works, but those two numbers kind of tie together like a frame rate.
10 to the negative 45. That's like point and then 43 zeros and a 1.
It's like a septillion or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Something more like reptilian.
Wait, so that might be like the smallest anything can ever be.
Where it wouldn't look glitchy. And that's some of the stuff where the second wave of simulation theory, I mean, people have thought about, Plato's allegory of the cave. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I don't understand it.
That's kind of what our podcast is on, but we had this conversation one time about how if you have a cave and there's people who live in the cave and there's a fire in the cave and they think that the whole life is the shadows casted on the wall. So that's a simulation theory by Plato, ages ago, essentially, kind of.
Yeah, but how does that relate?
But this new wave has got mathematics tied to it. 10 to the power of negative 45.
Okay.
So there's, instead of just the allegory of the cave, we've gone from the allegory of the cave to now there's actual math.
Got you.
That says we're just seeing the shadows on the wall of the cave.
We're still in the cave.
Yeah.
And we can't comprehend outside of the cave yet.
And our headsets are dialed into this certain mathematical frequency.
That's why spooky action at a distance, we don't understand it.
Yeah. No matter how fast you turn your head, it's there.
Right.
And it only has to render what you turn your head to. And it's recording the whole time, by the way.
Oh. Side note. I suppose that's true with everything then. Every experience that we have is kind of rendered in as exactly the moment we're doing it. So like just taking steps, for example, onto a hard ground or sound waves.
That's a feedback from spooky at a distance, superposition.
Like, would you hear a tree falling does a tree falling in the woods make a sound?
No, unless there's somebody there to experience it. It does not do. You don't hear shit.
There literally isn't even a tree falling.
But you will walk into woods and you'll see a tree down, but nobody heard that tree fall down.
That's interesting. It makes me wonder too, because kind of almost like a side quest, I want to say, since we're talking about video games so much. It reminds me of how we all have DMT in us, and DMT is linked to, you can take it, you get this crazy experience. People get a very similar experience if they take enough of it, and they all will say that they're going on a journey to like another dimension. Mm-hmm. But every living thing has DMT. Mm. So trees, bugs, grass, and this includes all plant life. Right? So a tree falling in the woods probably does make a noise. Assuming that DMT is the key.
Yeah, it probably does make a noise.
Yeah. So if
it's almost like DMT is a carrier of the processing of this experience.
Yeah. It's like, the key.
Yeah, it's a key.
If there's DMT, the DMT chemical involved, whatever that is, makes it react.
It's like
in a certain way.
It's almost like a video out, possibly.
It's the two-way communication, maybe.
The two-way, yep.
Yeah.
We can conceptualize, just you and I, bullshitting here. And I'm sure that's what, scientists do. But then they gotta,
they back it up.
They have to back it up somehow. Right now, in mathematics is the only thing that kind of, gives us clues.
I just saw that a DMT medication for PTSD. They were looking at making a DMT-based medication for that, for people. But it got struck down just recently by the FDA.
Wonder why they struck it down?
They said they struck it down because with other drugs, like, say, aspirin or something like that, you can take it, which means you can have a placebo-based trial. So you can give 5 people 5 pills, and 2 of them are fake, 3 of them are real, and then get results, right? You can't do that with a psychedelic.
That kind of makes sense.
They know if they're getting the experience,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it's just it has to be a different type of clinical trial.
Exactly. Yeah. Our clinical trials have to some way evolve to allow for something like this to happen.
It's like, what do you do with that, you know?
I mean, first off, you could just run the test with the placebo and see what happens. And if it's just completely bad data or doesn't work, then just look at the actual conclusion. Like, is the person better? And if that happens 1,000 times out of 1,000 or 995 times out of 1,000, then okay.
Even if it only happens half the time, there's therapeutic there.
That's true, even if it is only half, as long as there's no super negative side effects.
So that maybe there's some long-term effects.
Because from what I understand, psychedelics actually can rewire your brain a little bit. Not completely, but a little bit. And a lot of the people who take it talk about ego death.
Everybody could use that.
Yeah, imagine what the world would be like if every single human being had ego death.
It'd be totally different.
You'd have to imagine it'd be a much more peaceful place. But there's flip sides, I think, to that too.
Yeah. Everything comes with a cost,
Yeah.
it seems like. But I guess it would be a better place, right? I mean, you wouldn't have crime.
Everything and every motivation that people acted on, if there was no ego, would be of pure intention, right? Not of negative intention, like, for example, selfishness. It would all be for the greater good of everybody. That would be pretty wild to see what would happen. Because when I first started thinking about this, I thought, well, we might be people living in huts subject to the whims of nature and wild animals, whereas right now we live in complete structures that are temperature controlled and we can build them. You know, innovation, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, might not be there because a lot of innovation is based on how much money it's going to make somebody, right? But I think we would still have the motivation for innovation, but instead of how much is it going to make me personally or my shareholders, it would be how much is it going to benefit everybody.
How am I going to change the world?
Yeah, that would be pretty wild, man. That would probably lead to a much better life for every living being on the planet. All right, tell us what you thought about this conversation and extra dimensions. Do you believe in fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions? Do you think we're in a simulation? And if you do or you don't, why? Comment that down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.